In that wise, echinoderms. When we talk about the echinoderms, we call the echinodermata, the phylum Echinodermata. We're talking about group of organisms that are very closely related to the vertebrates in terms of their development. As a matter of fact, the group has been separated in the advanced biology, where they are grouped into the notochord group. They are not totally chordates, but they are protochordates. So they have what we call the brain stem cells, which is which is absent in invertebrates. But in them we have the stem cells. They make them more advanced than the so-called invertebrata, and they are radially symmetrical. I think I've explained this point of symmetrification through the first class of our contact in the what they call that classification. Under this, we are talking about that from a particular point at a central point, like we have a circumference. This particular organism looks circular in nature. We are not talking about the entire body looking. We have a central circular point for them to be divided. Along this particular point, like we are dividing a cycle into two through the center, taking the diameter. So also this particular organism have a particular central point which you can divide them through. If you miss out on this point, you will not be able to divide them into two equal halves on a physical appearance. So that's why we say that they are radially symmetrical. Example of this particular organism, we have the Cucumeria zasicola, and also we have what we call the starfish, which everybody knows, right? So the starfishes, they are examples here. So they what do you call it? They have a coordinating system, although they don't have a developed brain. They have what we call the nerve cells present in them, which runs through their body. It makes their sensitivity more coordinated than in other invertebrates. So that is about that. Then let's move on to what we are really in for today, and that is our invertebrates. Okay, you are vertebrates. The vertebrates are classified under phylum Chordata. The phylum Chordata includes all vertebrates having the following features. All vertebrates generally have a bilateral symmetrification. That means their body is bilaterally symmetrical. You divide them into head, trunk, and tail. Or you will be talking about the fact that a human being doesn't have tail. No, human being have tail, but the tail bones are well reduced. That's why it's not long enough. So the neck is what carries the head and it joins to the trunk. In most vertebrates, only on few vertebrates that we have a shortened neck. So we have that. Then another feature is what we have as internal skeleton. Endoskeleton is common to these particular organisms, and this is what differentiates them from some invertebrate like the arthropods that are having exoskeleton made up of chitin. Endoskeleton is either made up of cartilage or is made up of bone, osteocytes. So they have well-developed central nervous system also, and sense organs, as you have seen on the screen. So that is what we usually study under what we call the nervous coordination. So a closed blood system, yes, we have what we call a closed blood circulation. That means the blood system is wired through the entire body through piping system that emanates from the heart and returns back to the heart. So there is no point at which they are opened. They only supply the required materials out of the blood vessel through the process of diffusion, either simple diffusion or the what we call active transport process. So the blood capillaries are what penetrates into the tissues to supply blood to the cells. So that is what we have about the closed blood circulation. So some of them, we have what we call the systemic circulation, and we have what we call the pulmonary circulation, depending on how complex the organism is. In fishes, we don't have what we call the pulmonary circulation. We only have one, a single circulation. We still discuss about that as we move on. So the skins are either covered with scale from the most primitive, and as we move further, we get to feathers, and finally air, which is in the peak of the mammals. So phylum Chordata are animals with notochord and can be subdivided into 5 classes, which I always name param. That is an acronym I give to the 5 classes we have, which start with the phylum Pisces, the phylum Amphibia, the phylum Reptilia, the phylum Aves, which are called the birds, and then the phylum Mamalia. So the phylum Pisces simply belongs to the fishes, either bony fishes or cartilaginous fishes. So we what do you call it? The Pisces are majorly aquatic organisms, and they are cold-blooded. What do we mean by that? Cold-blooded. Another name, another terminology we use for cold-bloodedness is what we call poikilothermic. It's what we call the poikilothermic. That is, the body temperature varies with that of the surrounding. So their bodies are covered with scales. They breathe through their gills. Fertilization is external. What do we mean by fertilization is external? That means the young ones develop outside their body. The eggs in the female are not being fertilized within the body of the female. They will lay their egg, and the male will pour their sperm cells on that particular group of eggs. So they possess fins for locomotion. They have several fins that dictates the form of movement that they want to perform, and that is why I'm going to be showing you the diagram of a typical fish in and out, internal structure and the external structure. Their body are streamlined in shape so as for them to be able to easily navigate through water body to escape liquid friction. So from that point, let me open quickly the diagram of a typical fish. Okay, if you look at the diagram of the fish right on screen now, I believe that everybody can see. This is a diagram of a typical fish. Can we all see this? Is it clear with you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now let's take into consideration every part of the fish that we are seeing right on the screen, and we talk about the structural adaptation of this particular fish to the water body where they are being found. What do we call it? We have the internal structures like the urinary bladder, so as to be able to get rid of waste materials, especially in form of urine. What do we call it? We have what we call the intestine, which is the point of their digestion. Likewise, we have what we call the normal gallbladder, very close to the liver, and we have what we call the heart, which helps in pumping of the blood. That particular diagram of the heart have to be picked out. It's right inside that particular chamber, close to the head well. So It's not at that particular point you are seeing it in the diagram. Likewise, we have the gills. The gills are for respiration. The gills is always being covered with what we call operculum. Another name for operculum is what we call gill cover. Then we have the spine, which show that they are vertebrates. That's the long, what do you call it, talking about the bone that passed, one single bone that passed through the center of the fish. In the outer, what do you call it, in the external fissures, along this particular point of the bone, upward a bit, just a bit displaced upward, we have what we call the lateral line, and that is what you are seeing at this particular end of the tail. It continues that way around this particular region towards the head. So this particular line is very, very sensitive line. It helps them in detecting movement in the water body. It helps them to escape any form of threat from afar. They are very, very sensitive to vibration, and fish use them to be able to defend themselves, prepare themselves ahead of whatever that is coming. Likewise, we have the dorsal fin. The dorsal fin is always there for them to be able to balance up in water. You will see it whenever they would come to the surface of water and they are moving slowly. You will see their dorsal fin might even be outside on top of water, and you will see them moving. It helps them in steering to it. Then along this particular region where this particular labeling of gill is being located, if it is the external fissure, you begin to be seeing what we call the pectoral. The pectoral, what we call a fin. The pectoral fin is for steering forward, what we call it, to help them in changing direction. Let's continue. So along this region, like I said earlier, we have the pectoral fin used for steering, and along this particular lower part we have what we call the pelvic fin. The pelvic fin also is part of what we use for movement. The pelvic fin is similar to your leg. The way the leg walk, what we call it, is used for walking also. So the pelvic fin, their pectoral fin is like their hand, so they use it to maneuver through the water, use it to coordinate. While what we call it, the pelvic fin is also very, very important in point of their turning. If they want to turn quickly in water body, they can use to easily navigate through water. So what do you call it, that is about that too. Then we have what we call the tail fin. Fin is very, very much more important also in maneuvering in what you call it, in water. Then we have what we call the anal fin. The anal fin is close to where the anus is. That is why you are seeing this particular point of vent is where we call the anus in them. That's where they pass out their excreta. That's what we name that particular fin after, because that's where it's being found. All these fins we are having in front over there, all of them all together are called the dorsal fin. Only in few fishes we have a bit of a fin in between the anal fin and the pectoral and the pelvic fin, which we call the ventral fin. Very few fishes have that, especially in what do you call it, bony fishes. But if not, most other fishes don't usually have that particular fin in them. So that is that their brain is not well developed, although they have a bit more of coordination, and their circulation here, like I said initially, it is a single circulation. What do I mean by that? There is nothing like blood being pumped to the lungs before being pumped to the body. Here we have only one pumping of blood by the heart. The heart pumps the blood, it flows through the blood vessels down to the all part of the body, then it returns back to get nutrients as what we call essential materials here along this region, where we have the gills. The gills supply it with oxygen and also to diffuse into the heart, and the heart again pumps the blood again. So that's what we mean by a single circulation. And the blood, what you call the heart chamber, is just simply one. It's not divided, unlike in mammals where we have 4 chambers. That means the left and right auricle, the left and right ventricles. So in this one we have only one chamber, only one chamber. So it's not divided into ventricle, auricle, and all sorts. So that is that about Pisces. Then we move on to what do we call it? We move on to the amphibia. So for the amphibia, class amphibia, we have what we call the toad, we have frog, we have newt. We have the toad, we have frog, we have newt. We are all conversant with toad and frog. They are cold-blooded animals. That means they are poikilothermics. What do you call it? They spend most of their time on land, but their reproductive cycle is majorly in water. So that is why we talked about them as amphibia. And the structure of amphibia is classically different from that of reptilia. So don't take them for one another. Two of them have a bit of similarities, but if as we go along the line, you will understand much more of the differences between amphibia and reptilia. One of those things is that amphibia have the capacity to carry out gaseous exchange using gills, lungs, skin, and mouth. Lung, skin, what do you call it, gills and mouth. The gills is majorly for their for their developmental stage, at their young stage, while as they grow on, the lung is become well developed and the gills disappears. Then they have a very thin skin which help them to be able to a very moist surface for their skin, which help the skin to be able to trap atmospheric oxygen and dissolve in it to be able to diffuse inward. Then the mouth, this particular point of mouth respiration, the mouth gaseous exchange is what we call the buccal respiration, while the skin is what we call the cutaneous respiration. So they also respirate with the lungs, as they have nostrils too, to trap in atmospheric air inward, so as to get to the lungs for gaseous exchange. Okay, so the fertilization is also external, like we have in fishes. They lay their egg outside and the male eventually pour the sperm right on it. So they always make sure that they breed in an environment where there is water. Like fishes lay their eggs in water, so also amphibians lay their egg in water. Amphibians do this as much. So they have 2 pairs of limbs with web toes. Okay, this particular web toe will be addressed as much in what we have in toad and frog. In toad, unlike frog, where the feet are webbed through, in toad the feet have their digits. They are not webbed like the way we have in frog. They have a digit four limbs, and digit 4 limbs. What do you mean? That means their fingers are well separated from one another. But when they are webbed, they are jointed together, which I'm still going to show you in in the diagram. I said that they have a fertilization is external, like in what do you call it, in fishes, in Pisces. So the major differences between amphibia and reptilia is the ability to respirate with their mouth, with their skin, and their skins are not covered with scale. But in reptilia, in reptiles, their skin have lots of scales along at a particular point. But in amphibia, there is nothing like scale on their body at all. If you look at frog, if you look at toad, you will get much more insight into what I am saying. The parts of frog, we have a well-boggled eye, which help them to be able to cover very bigger radius of vision, and the four limbs is not webbed, only the hind limbs are webbed. We say that they have a web feet. This web feet is for them to navigate through water, for them to be able to go through water bodies. So also they have what you call the vocal sac, which make them to be able to make all those noise that we have from them at night. And these particular hind limbs are long and coiled, folded together, so as for them to be able to navigate their terrestrial habitat. So it gives them ability to limp for long. Then we have what we call the tympanum. The tympanum is the hair opening, just like our hair drum is internally enclosed inside the the pineal and the auditory pipe. In these ones, their own is open to the external environment. Their tympanum is open to the external environment, so the sound from the environment hit the tympanic membrane directly. So their skin, like I said, is wet, so as for easy, and very thin, so as for easy diffusion of oxygen and dissolution of oxygen. So they have the nursery, which helps them to be able to breathe very well. Now let's discuss class Reptilia. Well, class Reptilia, we have what we call the lizard as a perfect example. Likewise, snakes, crocodiles, etc. People always classify crocodiles and alligators as amphibia. That is for in terms of when you want to talk about habitat. No. In science, we are not talking about them in terms of just habitat. We are talking about them in their evolutionary trend, their similar characteristics, what makes them what they are. We have more of similarity between lizard and crocodile and snakes and the alligators than between crocodile and toad. So that is what makes them to belong to the same class. So they belong to the class Reptilia. The skins are always covered with scales, which prevent water loss from their body because they are mostly on the terrestrial point. The most of their time they spend it on the terrestrial point. If you look at crocodile very well, they mostly go into water for hunting. When they want to hunt, they like to go into water so as to lay low for prey and capture them. They have more of their power to be able to capture their prey in there. So that is what crocodiles do. We find out that on most occasions they come on land to rest. They will have their reproduction right on land. They don't have their form of reproduction in water, unlike the amphibia. So Likewise, the class Reptilia, they have what we call the internal fertilization. That means, unlike the amphibia, which is external fertilization, they mate with their male ones, and the male ones eventually the male ones eventually pour their sperm cell into the oviduct of the female, where it gets through to the eggs and the egg become fertilized. Once the egg is fertilized, the egg will become laid. The egg will become laid, like we have it in Aves. The egg will become laid. On most occasions, they dig the ground and they lay their eggs and cover it for incubation. So it will be incubated inside the soil. Once the young one is mature, it breaks through the shells out, and then it's going to come out from that particular point. Some of these particular organisms will even be monitoring their eggs at that particular point, and they go after such. They go after such and make sure that they get their eggs back. So the developed organism comes out, and then some of them will show a bit of parental care for them, while most of them will just leave them and allow them to go. So that is about their their reproduction. The Reptilia, the class Reptilia, they are also poikilothermic. They are cold-blooded. Their body temperature is majorly cold. Their blood system is much more cold. That's why if snakes pass over your body, if you ever feel passing over of snakes on your body before, you will find out that it's a very cool, calm organism. Okay. Gaseous exchange is carried out through their lungs. They don't have gills. They don't, at any point of their life cycle, they don't have gills. Neither is their skin so thin enough for cutaneous respiration. So they only respire through their nostril, which is in contact as a pipe to their lungs. So they say that gaseous exchange is carried out through the lungs. They have most of them have strong claws, except for in snakes. If you look at snakes very well, underneath their body they have this kind of subduction, which helps in grabbing to the soil, to the ground very well, to be able to navigate on land. That is what differentiates Reptilia as much from Aves. So from Amphibia. So you will see that some things are missing in them, like moist skin, naked moist skin. This one has dry skin as much. This dry scale. You might be saying that the body temperature of snakes is cool, but that doesn't make its skin moist. So take note of that. Likewise, if you go on to class Aves, in class Aves you have scales also in them, which made them similar to Reptilia. That means they evolved from Reptilia, but the scales are majorly found at the feet level. And there are so many of us who have killed chicken, domestic fowl here before. We have taken chicken as meat for various celebrations before. You will find out that at the feet region, you always try to add warm water in order to be able to open up the scales that cover that particular feet level. So they have scales covering that particular area, and this particular scale is also to be able to protect them from any attack from all ground from ground organisms that like snake. If snake attack them through that particular portion, they were likely not to be affected, except there is a sharing off of that particular scale, and also this scale prevent water loss also. Above it, we now have what we call the feathers. The feathers is what cover the whole body. The feathers are modified at different portions for different functions. At the wing level, there is a way the feathers are being arranged in order to be able to fit in for flight. At their tail region, there's a way it's been arranged in order to be able to spread out to serve like a balancing mechanism in air for them. So that is about it. Then they are toothless. They have beaks. Beaks are used for feeding. Then that will take me back to reptilia. Reptilias doesn't have beak. They have teeth. Dentition in reptilia are simply homodont. Dentition in reptilia are simply homodont. Likewise in Pisces, dentition is homodont. But for Aves, for Amphibia, they lack dentition. They don't have any form of arrangement. They don't have any form of teeth in them. Teeth are not arranged. But in reptilia, in Pisces, the dentition is homodont. That means they have the same set of teeth all through. Or how many of you have ever seen your own fish before having incision and canine? You have seen that their teeth is different from one another. That we have some that is flattened at the back. Is there anybody who have that? I'm listening. Alright, I'm just joking. So for them, we have the limbs are modified for wings. Into wings for flight. The four limbs, that is what we use for flight. That is what you have as their wings. Their hind limbs is still there. That is their landing gear, just like airplane. So they are coming from air, they will land on that particular feet to be able to apply their their brake to halt. So that is, and also for some of these particular birds, their feet are modified based on where they are mostly found. Some of them are cool predators. Their claws of the feet are so long, sharp, and coiled inward. So that shows that they use it in capturing prey. They are mostly carnivorous birds. Likewise, the ones that are rightly on land, that they don't usually fly as much, like we have in domestic fowls, in domestic fowl, in guinea fowl. These ones have a blunt claw, so as for them to be able to scrap through the soil to find little soil organisms that they can feed on, and also to navigate through their terrain very well, and it's always strong on that feet. Then for those, some of them have web feet, especially like duck, herons. They are to not cattle eagle. Cattle eagle is an example of heron too, but I'm not talking about those ones. I'm talking about those tall herons. They have web feet, so as for them to navigate through water bodies. So we have some of them, their feet claws are long, they are sharp, but they are not coiled. Those ones might have varieties of nutrition. They may not be carnivores. They will be standing in between. And some of them, you have their beak excessively long for sucking of nectars, like in hummingbirds. We have, but in most of them that are carnivorous, you have their beak are always coiled, long, sharp, and coiled down. So that is one of those. And for those ones that feed on soil microorganism on the soil, they have their beak being able to sharp, long, not long, but blunt at the edge, like we have in domestic fowl. So that is their mode of feeding. So fertilization is internal, and they are warm-blooded animal, homeothermic. They are warm-blooded animal. Their body temperature is constant. The blood is always warm because of their mode of circulation. I'm talking about their heart chamber. In the heart chamber is nearly what do you call it? Four divided into four right now. The heart chamber is already divided into three, very well, three parts. We have what do you call it? The two ventricles and majorly one auricle on top. So the heart chamber is what do you call it? Nearly divided into four, like we have in mammals. Likewise, the division in what do you call it, in reptilia is already more two chambered, nearly going to three also, while in amphibia it is still a pre-division of nearly into two, halfway into two chamber. It's not yet much more pronounced. So circulation also is, like we also said, is always closed in these ones. But in mammals, circulation is of two types. We have what we call the systemic circulation and what do you call it? We have the systemic circulation, and we have the pulmonary circulation. Mammals too, they are warm-blooded. Body is majorly covered with air all through. They give birth. Now, in terms of giving birth, all external fertilization, they are what do you call it? Oviparous. Internal fertilization, for reptilia, for Aves, they are internal fertilization, but they are still oviparous because their young ones majorly develop, incubate in outside their body, outside the body of their of the parent organism. That means on land, in water, anywhere. But for Mamalia, their young ones are always incubated within the body cavity of that particular parent organism. That is why we call them that they are viviparous. They are what? Viviparous. Take note of that. So in viviparous organisms have fertilization internally. The egg migrates to a particular portion of the female what we call reproductive system, and is able to implant itself there for supply of nutrients from the main from the parent organism. So the first thing development is what we call the placenta. It will develop around that particular fertilized egg. Then from there it keeps on nourishing that, and it keeps on developing. And once it's matured, then it can be given birth to a life, and that is what we call the viviparity process. So like I said, the body is covered. Their body is covered with air. They have what we call the sweat pores. They have what we call the sweat gland, which is responsible for carrying out of their respiration. Their excretion through the skin. So they possess lungs for respiration. They have kidney. The kidney is much more what we call pronounced two kidney. One at two kidney, a pair of kidney. But unlike in Aves, we have one kidney available for what we call excretion. So they are, in terms of dentition, they are heterodonts. What do we mean by heterodonts? They have different type of teeth in a set. Like in adult teeth now, we have the incisor, the canine, we have the premolar and molar. Although in some of these particular variants might be absent, but they will still have one or two, at least two of these particular types of teeth present in them. Then in kangaroos, unlike other mammals, their young ones is like always in form of a premature, and they have a pouch right in their ventral level where they can bear their young one in there and carry it all around until it's well mature enough to be able to navigate outside. And when it develops up to a certain extent, you know, because they are used to that particular point, you see the young ones always trying to stay there even when they are old enough to be able to navigate around. But at the long run, they may, their mother will have to release them and chase them away so that another baby will come in. Any other person with question before we now move on with the class expressly? Adeleke?
I just want to ask, python.
Yes?
Reptiles.
Yes?
Do they have any special characteristic in them for them to stay in water? Because python mostly go underwater.
Okay. What do you call it? Pythons don't they don't possess gills, but they can stay underwater due to long period of training. Like we have in human being. Have you ever seen divers before? They can stay underwater for certain number of minutes and come to the surface to gasp for for air. So these particular organisms, they have a variant adaptation, but you will find out that they will still come on land later on. They don't stay in that particular water. Likewise, crocodiles, they can go deep into waters. Crocodiles can dive deep into waters and yet still survive. They know how to manipulate their nasal cavity and their their buccal cavity to be able, as they are taking water through their nose, then they spit it out through their mouth. So it's a kind of adaptation. Human being, the divers try as much to do that, but at the same time they are not as effective for a long period of time. 20 to 30 minutes they can stay underwater, then they come on land. So also this particular organism, due to adaptation for long, being able to interact with these particular water bodies, then as a matter of fact, to get to a point, it looks as if it is an acquired it is a trait that is much more dwelling in them. A baby python cannot stay in water for that long. It's just bit by bit as they get older, interacting with the water body. But we have some snakes that are majorly water snakes. Not all snakes can enter into water, and not all pythons can enter into water. So that is what you should know. Not all lizard can enter into water. As a matter of fact, most of the lizard species that we have are not water friendly. They try as much as possible to stay afloat whenever they are in water body. If not, they won't survive. Adeleke, have I answered your question, or is there any detail I'm missing?
No, you've answered it.
Alright. Any other person? Then can you see the image I've displayed on the screen? I just wanted to use to explain what we call viviparity. This particular image is basically explaining the point of viviparity. That means ability to give birth to their young ones alive, and all these are made possible through this particular structure you are having here. Mammals have a structure called the womb. Mammals have a structure called the womb. The womb have two pipe from the internal point that leads to the ovary. This particular pipe is what we call the fallopian tube, and that is where you have as label X here on the screen. So at the portion of this particular womb, the womb is also known as the uterus. We have this point label 1 as the point of implantation. The point of implantation where it is being glued to the wall of the uterus. So likewise, we now have this particular pipe that passes food from this particular structure that covers like a liquid structure that covers this particular fetus, which is labeled V3, which we call the placenta. This placenta You can see it's labeled 4. This placenta contains all the what do you call it? This particular placenta is contain all the essential nutrients for nourishment of this particular fetus. The fetus. The IX is what we call the umbilical cord. The umbilical cord supplies the nutrient from that particular placenta to the fetus. The piping system, that is what join up with our navel that is being reduced right now after we have come out, is being cut off. Are you getting what I'm saying now? So the other point of liquid, the amniotic liquid which surrounds, that helps in as a shock absorber, the cranium, as a shock absorber, all of them, they are present here. That's what I'm pointing to here. Then this is simply the wall of the uterus. You can see is still here. Then this particular opening that we have in here is what we call the cervix. The cervix is what dilates at the point of birth for female. Then we have what do you call it? We have the part V, which we call the vagina. So this is the process. This is for copulation. This is where the sperm is able to get in to go on to fertilize the egg. The fertilization doesn't take place here. Fertilization takes place along the point of this particular fallopian tube, which we call the ampulla. That's the major place. If you take place in another other place, it's likely to cause what we call a regular point of pregnancy. We got ectopic example like the ectopic pregnancy, and that one can be lost at any time, but you call complication if it eventually develops. So that is about that. Likewise, we have what do you call it? We have the lungs. We have the lungs. The lungs is well adapted for respiration. We have the what do you call it? The air pipes. You can see this particular one has cut off the larynx, the pharynx upward. Now we have the trachea, which leads to the bronchus. The bronchus divided into what we call the bronchioles. The bronchioles eventually leads down into tiny sac here, which are not visible to us, which we call the alveoli or the hair sac. So the two lungs, we have two. We have right lungs and the left lung. Of the two, the right lung is always the biggest in mammals. Then the left lung is always more smaller. If we have it, what do you call it? Even if we have toe dissection, you will see this particular two lungs in them, and you have the left lungs always smaller than the right lungs. The right lung is bigger, have 3 lobes as it's been labeled there: superior, mid, and the inferior lobes. While that particular one of the left lung is just only through 2 lobes, the inferior and the superior lobes. Of all the lobes, the superior lobes is always the biggest, so we don't need that as much, but I just feel that we need to see this particular structure for some of us that want to write beyond just JAMB, and some of our post-2 TMEs might ask these questions from us. Now please take note of this. Chlamydomonas is not mostly regarded as kingdom Plantae anymore, and I will tell you the reason why we still have the fraction and extraction for this particular organism still remaining as part of a kingdom Plantae. Because of thallophytes. Thallophytes are a group of algae, and Chlamydomonas in the structural makeup resemble in every sense of the algae, but it is a unicellular organism. All unicellular organisms have been grouped together and have been classified under kingdom Protista. And if you look at the previous classes, I made mention of kingdom Protista having 4 classes. Of the 4 classes, only one of them is non-motile, that they cannot move. They only move by the help of the medium where they are found. And that is what we call the kingdom Sporozoa. It says kingdom class Sporozoa, where we have the likes of Plasmodium. Chlamydomonas have flagella, and it can move by the aid of this particular flagella, and that's why it's classified as class Mastigophora. I made mention of these ones in my previous classes under classification of the kingdom Protista. So we have class Rhizopoda, which use a move by the help of pseudopodia, example amoeba. The class Ciliophora, which is paramecium, they move by the help of cilia. Then we have class Mastigophora, where we have Chlamydomonas, we have Trypanosome, we have Glenna. They move by the help of flagella. So for you talking about Chlamydomonas, Chlamydomonas is not supposed to still remain excessively as part of kingdom Plantae, but because of the relativity of Thallophyte, which is algae, that is why you are seeing it there. The most large span or the entirety of the kingdom Plantae, they are non-motile organisms. They are organisms that cannot move. Likewise for kingdom Fungus. Any question again? Is there clarity to your question now, Deborah? In absence of questions, let me give a brief recap of the classification of living organisms. We said that living organisms can be grouped based on related characteristics, and you have what you call the hierarchy of this particular grouping, or hierarchy of classification. See this man head coming, after you are seeing double head. I'm not the one who owns the 2 head, I only have 1 head. The other head belongs to another person entirely. So if you can help me to cut it off, I will appreciate it. Okay. For the kingdom Monerans, they are the most primitive of all the 5 kingdoms that we have. I do have an acronym for the kingdom. I do call it PPFAM. PPFAM. For some of you who attend the Redeemed Church here, you know what we call PP, Provincial Pastor. Okay, forget about that. I'm not talking about religion here. PPFAM. So we have Protist, Plantae, Fungus, Animalia, Monera. So that one makes it easy for me to remember it while I was in school then. Likewise, what we call in terms of most primitive, Monerans are the most primitive, followed, which are groups of prokaryotic organisms. That means prokaryotic celled organisms, and they are single cell. Of all, the Monerans and the and the Protists are the major unicellular organisms. Another organism that is unicellular, that is classified under fungus, is what we call the yeast. And like I told you, mostly all the unicellular organisms, one cell organism that are eukaryote, have been classified as kingdom Protist. So take note of that. So modern classification, there is a bit of dwindling in this particular placing of organisms, and they will tell you the reason why they are still available under this particular classification. Alright, so from the most primitive to the most complex of all the kingdom, we have the Monerans, followed by the Protista, followed by Fungus, followed by Plantae, then followed by Animalia. Animalia is the most complex or developed of all these 5 kingdoms. So that's the order of the evolution that we are treating them. That means Monerans appear on Earth first, followed by the Protist, followed by the Fungus, followed by the Plantae, then finally Animalia. I think we understand that. MPF PA. MPF PA. So take that one at the back of your mind. Okay, so for we've displayed the notes bit by bit today, and I keep on explaining, I keep on saying a lot of things. I will really like to know about everybody who have really taken down the necessary details of this particular class in their notes today. So snap your note and send it to the platform for me to see, and if there is any little adjustment we are going to make in there, I will call your attention to such. Okay, so the Moneras, like I said, they are made up of two phyla, the Cyanophyta, which are the first bacteria. They are the most primitive. Then the true bacteria is called the Schizophyta. They are the true bacteria. Then we have 6 minutes more for this particular class to end, and that will be all for today. Then we have in the Protista, we have 3 major phylum: the Protophyta, the the Protozoas, then the Euglenoid or the Euglenophyta. Then for the kingdom Fungus, we have 3 main classes: Bacillio Mycotina, Ascomycotina, and the Zygomycotina. We have 4 groups: the toadstool, the slime mold, the bread mold, and the mushrooms. So you should take note of this also. Then under kingdom Plantae, we have the Talophyta, the division Talophyta, division Bryophyta, division Tracheophyta. Under the Talophyta, we have 4 group of algae: the blue-green algae, the brown algae, the red algae, and the green algae. So take note of that also. Under Bryophyta, we have 3 classes: class Particae, class Moss, and the class of onwards. So take note of these 3 too. And we said that the alternation of generation is prominent in mosses, where gametophyte generations are dominant, while in pteridophyte, under Tracheophyte, we have pteridophyte, we have the Spermatophyta. The Spermatophyta is subdivided into 2. We have the Gymnosperms and the Angiosperms. The Angiosperms are further divided into 2, which we call the dicotyledon and the monocotyledon. In dicotyledon, which is what we call secondary thickening in their stem region, while in the monocotyledon there is not secondary thickening. We've listed the characteristics for these particular ones also. Then kingdom Animalia, which I always represent by the acronyms NEPA Camp: Nematoda, Echinodermata, the Plantae Animalia, Annelida, Coelenterata, I mentioned Arthropoda, the other Arthropoda, then the other one is Annelida, then we have Mollusca, then we have the Porifera, because I call Plantae Animalia in the other NEPA P. So these are all of them. Then on the when we have down the phylum for the chordata, for the phylum chordata, which are for the vertebrates, we have 5 classes, which I made mention of in the beginning of this particular class, that we have Param, Pisces, Amphibia, Reptilia, and mollusk. And then Mamalia. Sorry. So don't mind me. Mamalia. So this particular depicting is in order of their evolution. That means Pisces exists before Amphibia in evolutionary trend. Amphibia exists before Reptilia. Reptilia exists before Aves. Aves exists before Mamalia. And now the complex one, the Mamalia, are the most complex of all living organisms that we ever have on Earth. Any question? That's the summary of our classification process all so far. Any question? And that will be the end of the class for today. Mr. Shijuade, any moment from now, will take over from this particular point.
Good evening, everybody. I hope you enjoyed today's class.
Yes, I did.
That's great.
Yes, sir.
Great.
Yes, sir.
So this is how we'll be doing it by God's grace. We can see from what we agreed on yesterday. The agreement was that we will continue to give you your class in this format, and the reason is not far-fetched.